There are people who walk into your life and turn everything upside down in the best way. For me, that person was Allison. Back then, if you told me a girl like her would ever look twice at a guy like me, I'd have laughed you off. Not because I thought I was worthless, but because Allison was the kind of girl who belonged in stories. The kind of girl people remembered long after she walked away. She had this way of moving through the world like it owed her something, gracefully, confidently. Her hair was the kind that shimmered even in fluorescent lighting. She always had the right thing to say, and when she laughed, people looked up from their phones. Even professors listened more closely when she spoke. And somehow, in the middle of our sophomore year at HUC Hudson University College, she picked me. I was just me, Michael, digital design major, sketchpad always within reach, quiet, observant, the guy who preferred late-night diners over campus parties. I kept to myself, happy to live in my own little world of color palettes and typography. She called me mysterious. I thought she was joking at first, but she wasn't. We met in an elective Intro to Consumer Psychology. I sat near the back, hoodie up, headphones in, trying to avoid small talk. She took the seat next to me one morning, unbothered by my silence. "You're always sketching," she said. "That your way of surviving this class?" I glanced down at my notebook. I'd been drawing the professor as a cartoon character, giving a dramatic monologue about brand loyalty. "Something like that," I replied. She smiled. "You're weird. I like weird." That was the start. We weren't one of those instantly inseparable couples. Took time. Weeks of study sessions, lunch breaks, and late-night texts that grew longer and more personal. One night, we stayed up until 4 a.m. talking about childhood fears and secret dreams. That's when I knew I was in trouble. I never really believed in the she's out of my league stuff until Allison. She had her pick of anyone, and plenty of guys tried, but she kept coming back to me. I'd catch her looking at me across campus, this half-smile playing on her lips like I was the punchline to a joke only she knew. She said I made her feel safe. That with me, she didn't have to pretend. God, I believed her. We'd lie on the grass behind the library, staring up at the clouds like they held answers. She told me she wanted a beautiful life. City lights, rooftop dinners, weekends in Paris. I told her I wanted a life I didn't need to escape from. A small studio, a steady design job, someone to come home to. She said we'd find a way to want both. That we'd make it work. That we were building something. I thought she meant it. Our third year was the sweet spot. We'd hit our rhythm, class, part-time jobs, saving what we could, talking about the future like it was a place already waiting for us. She wanted a job in a big firm, a marketing agency that would give her access to the kind of lifestyle she dreamed of. I wanted to freelance, maybe launch my own brand studio someday. She believed in me, or at least, she said she did. I remember the little things, how she used to read my sketch notes, run her fingers through my hair while I worked, text me memes that made no sense unless you were 2 parts exhausted and 1 part in love. She'd steal my hoodie even though it was 2 sizes too big. Said it smelled like home. She used to say she didn't care about money, that what we had was enough. And maybe for a while, it was. Looking back, I think I always knew she was chasing something I couldn't hold on to. But when someone like Allison chooses you, when she makes you feel seen in a way no one else ever has, you don't question it. You just hold on tighter. You believe that you're the exception, that this story will end differently, that this girl, with the big smile and bigger dreams, might actually be your forever. I didn't know it then, but forever had a time limit. After graduation, we moved, not just into a new apartment or neighborhood, but into a new city, a new phase of life. A different orbit spun entirely around Allison's next big step. She'd landed an internship at a rising marketing firm in River Point, a mid-sized city 2 states over. It wasn't quite New York or Chicago, but it had glass buildings, rooftop lounges, designer boutiques, and just enough flash to make her eyes light up. "I know it's a big ask," she said, twirling the phone cord between her fingers, "but it's a huge opportunity. I think this place could really take me somewhere." She meant her future, and I said yes without blinking, because that's what you do when you believe in someone. When you're in love, you pack up your life, kiss your hometown goodbye, and follow them into the unknown. No questions asked. I didn't have a job lined up. Didn't know anyone in River Point. My freelance gigs were sparse, and the move ate up what little I had saved. But she was excited. She talked about their office culture, the vision of the company, the view from the 18th floor. And I wanted her to have everything she'd ever dreamed of. So I hustled. We found a tiny apartment with brick walls and bad insulation. She said it was charming. I said it was tight. The rent took half of what I had left. The rest went into making it feel like home. A second-hand coffee table, some string lights, a framed print of her favorite skyline. She wanted the good life. I gave her the best I could. I took on design jobs for whoever would pay. Real estate flyers, discount coupons for dentists, bar menus for pubs that smelled like spilled regret. One guy paid me in coffee and exposure. I said yes. Another paid me in pizza vouchers. Whatever I earned, I spent on her. Surprise dinners. A new coat she wanted but couldn't justify. Birthday gifts that meant I'd eat ramen for a week. She liked candlelit sushi and champagne. I made it happen with coupons and corner store wine. She smiled, said I was sweet, and when she got offered a full-time position after her internship, I bought a bottle of something bubbly and toasted to the future. Our future, I said. She kissed me that night, held me tight, told me I was her rock, and I believed her. We'd lie on our cheap mattress and talk about our someday. She wanted a condo downtown with big windows and furniture that didn't wobble. She wanted weekend getaways, a dog named Bowie, and wine racks that stayed full. She talked about owning a house by 30, visiting the Amalfi Coast, and maybe, just maybe, kids when the timing was right. I'd nod, listen, picture it all with her. But I also noticed something else. When we passed luxury cars on the street, she'd say, "That's what success looks like." When she saw photos of couples on vacation, dressed in designer clothes, she'd whisper, "That's goals." And when she looked at me, sometimes, just sometimes, I saw the shadow of doubt. Like she was wondering if I could give her that life. I kept trying, pushing, designing, pitching ideas. I started building a small brand identity portfolio, hoping something bigger would come. I wanted her to be proud. I wanted to prove I could build a life that matched her dreams. She'd still laugh at my jokes, still sleep on my chest, still tell me she loved me. But there were cracks, little moments I tried to ignore, like when she hesitated before introducing me to her new coworkers, or when she said, "I just wish things were easier," or when she started going out more, always dressed sharp, always glowing from something that wasn't just happiness. I didn't think she was drifting. I told myself it was just stress, that she was adjusting to adult life, that once I landed a big client, once I got my foot in the door somewhere legit, everything would align again. She was my dream, my muse, my person, so I kept giving. Even when it cost me more than I had. Even when she stopped saying thank you. Because love, real love, is supposed to be about sacrifice, right? Or maybe I just believed that because I was the one doing all the sacrificing. It started with the heels. That's what I remember most. One day, Allison came home from work wearing these sharp, black stilettos that looked like they belonged on the cover of some fashion magazine. She'd never been into that kind of thing before. Preferred sneakers or ballet flats, shoes that let her move freely, laugh loudly. But now she was walking like someone who didn't plan to stop. And it wasn't just the shoes. She changed. Subtly at first. New clothes. New perfume. A new way of talking about her job. She started dropping words like networking and brand identity in casual conversation. Suddenly, every dinner included names I didn't know. Sarah from analytics, Mark from PR, Jay from upper management. Especially Jay, her boss. She mentioned him often. Too often. Jay said I should try this wine. Jay thinks I should take more initiative. Jay's hilarious. You'd like him. Only I never got the chance to like or dislike him because I wasn't invited. At first, I didn't mind her social calendar filling up. She was growing, finding her place. I knew that was important to her. But it wasn't long before I realized I wasn't part of the growth. Her company had team dinners, happy hours, Events on rooftops with twinkle lights and view lines. At first, she'd mention them casually. Just a work thing. You wouldn't enjoy it. Too loud, too corporate. Eventually, she stopped mentioning them at all. She started wearing makeup every day. Got her hair styled. Bought new dresses she said were for client presentations. Her texts came later. Her laughs were shorter. And our dinners became takeout containers she barely touched. Our friends noticed. Or at least the ones she hadn't completely ghosted. Chloe, who had been her roommate before me, asked if we were still okay. Jacob joked that I must have become a ghost because Allison hadn't brought me around in weeks. She's just busy, I told them. Big things at work. I believed it. I needed to believe it. Because if I didn't, I'd have to admit what my gut already knew. The distance wasn't just physical, it was emotional. When she talked, it was about her job. When I talked, her eyes glazed over. I'd show her new design drafts, mock-ups I was proud of, and she'd nod absent-mindedly while scrolling her phone. It's nice, she'd say. Not great. Not exciting. Just nice. One night, I asked if she wanted to hang out with some of our old college friends. She hesitated, then said, they're kind of stuck in the past, aren't they? I didn't answer, because I knew what she really meant. So was I. She started spending more time away from the apartment. Working late, she said. Team-building dinners, she added. When I asked why I couldn't join, she laughed gently and touched my hand. Babe, these people are intense. You'd be so bored. I smiled, nodded. But something inside me cracked a little. One Friday night, I waited up for her. Midnight passed. Then 1 a.m. Then 2. When she walked in at 2:30, heels in one hand, phone in the other, I asked how her night went. She smiled vaguely. It was fine. I asked who was there. She hesitated. Just the team. Same people as always. I wanted to ask more. I wanted to push. But she looked so tired. Or maybe just uninterested. So I said nothing. And in that silence, something started growing between us. Not resentment. Worse. Distance. There were moments, fleeting and fragile, where I thought we were still us. A night she brought home my favorite takeout. A morning we laughed over some dumb inside joke from college. A lazy Sunday where we watched reruns in bed. But they felt like echoes. Like memories dressed in the illusion of now. The Allison I knew, the one who danced barefoot in the kitchen and painted little hearts on my coffee mugs, was slipping away. And the version of her that remained? She was climbing. Towards something I couldn't see. And I was standing still. You never really notice when the last good moment happens. Not until much later, when you're sifting through memories, trying to pinpoint the exact second things turned cold. If I had to choose, it was probably the night she started locking the bedroom door. She said it was because she was on a Zoom call with overseas clients. Confidential stuff, she mumbled, brushing past me in a tailored black dress I didn't recognize. Her hair was pinned up, her makeup was immaculate, and her perfume clung to the hallway long after she shut the door. It was 9:45 p.m. The door didn't open again until after midnight. I was still awake, pretending to be asleep. She slipped into bed like a stranger breaking in, her back to me, phone in hand, screen glowing against the wall. I heard a faint laugh. Then silence. That became our rhythm. She stayed late at the office more and more. Some nights she wouldn't come home until 11. Others, not at all. Always a reason. A late project. An impromptu brainstorming session. Someone's birthday party. Another dinner. I asked once if she wanted me to swing by and walk her home. She smiled, distracted. It's fine, babe. I'm with the team. You'd be bored anyway. She stopped calling me during lunch breaks. Stopped texting goodnight when she stayed out. Her phone was always on vibrate now, face down, locked tight. And when it lit up, I didn't recognize the names anymore. I kept trying. I'd make her coffee before she left. Pick up dinner on nights I knew she'd be too tired. Offer back rubs. Ask about her day. She answered in short, clipped phrases. Or not at all. It was like trying to hold a shadow. She wasn't angry. She wasn't cold. She just wasn't there anymore. I remember one Sunday morning, it was sunny, rare for February, and I suggested we take a walk through the park, maybe grab brunch. I was smiling when I asked, but her face tightened like I'd said something wrong. I can't. I've got prep work for Monday, she said, tying her hair into a ponytail. Jay's counting on me. There it was again. Jay. Her boss. He came up more and more in conversation. I started recognizing the rhythm of his name, how it slipped from her lips with an easy kind of reverence. Like he was a celebrity. Like I should know him, admire him. Like she did. That night, I opened her laptop when she left it on the coffee table. I don't know what I was looking for. Maybe confirmation. Maybe relief. Maybe a reason to stop wondering. But it was locked. She had changed the password. We used to dream together. Late nights on the couch, legs tangled, planning future vacations. Debating city versus suburbs. Imagining a dog, a kid, a life. She'd say, you and me against the world. Now, I wasn't even sure I was in her world at all. I didn't know what was happening, but I could feel it. Like a draft sneaking in through a cracked window. The warmth was gone, and I was freezing. She told me over breakfast. Or what passed for breakfast, coffee and toast, mostly untouched. I'm flying out with a few people from the office, she said casually, spreading jam over the crust without looking at me. We're doing a field research project for a potential campaign. Out of state. I blinked. Field research? She nodded. Just a few days. 4, maybe 5. I'll be back before you know it. That's what she said. But something about the way she avoided my eyes, something about how fast she spoke, the packed suitcase already by the door that said otherwise. Still, I didn't question it. Couldn't. Because love makes you trust, even when your gut whispers not to. She kissed my cheek goodbye and promised to call when she landed. I stood there holding my coffee, lukewarm and bitter, watching the door close behind her. I didn't know it then, but that moment would replay in my mind 1,000 times. The calls never came. Texts were short. Vague. Busy day. Hope you're good. Heading to dinner with the team. Can't talk now, in meetings all night. I tried not to overthink it. Tried not to imagine hotel rooms and candlelit tables and whispered laughter meant for someone else. But the silence grew louder. I went through the motions, work, coffee, takeout dinners for one. I left the porch light on out of habit. Kept refreshing her last message, like maybe more words would appear if I stared long enough. She didn't FaceTime once. Not like she used to. On the third night, I called twice. No answer. By the fourth, I stopped trying. I told myself not to worry. That it was just a busy trip. That maybe she'd come back smiling, tired, holding brochures and work stories to fill the quiet. But deep down, something had shifted. She wasn't mine anymore. She was already somewhere else in more ways than one. Jacob called me the next afternoon. Jacob, my old college roommate. One of the few people who still bothered to check in. You got a minute? He asked, voice uncertain. I did. I wasn't sure if I should say anything, he began. But I figured if it were me, I'd want to know. He told me everything. That Allison had been seen boarding the plane alone with Jay. That there wasn't a whole team. Just the two of them. That they were spotted having dinner in a restaurant far from any hotel, far from anything that looked like work. That a mutual friend from college, now working in that same city, had seen them, hands touching, eyes locked. They looked together, he said. And not in a boss employee way. My mouth went dry. I don't remember much else from the call. Only that I said thank you and hung up. Then sat in the dark, phone in hand, heart in pieces. When she came back, the lie wore heels. She walked in like nothing had happened. Dropped her coat, opened the fridge, asked if I'd eaten. Said she was exhausted. But she didn't hug me. Didn't kiss me. Didn't even ask how my week had been. And that night, as she unpacked, I saw it. A second phone charger. Not hers. I stared at it, then at her. Allison, I said slowly. Can we talk? She froze. Then sighed, long and slow, like she'd been holding it in for weeks. Yeah, she said. We should. She sat on the edge of the bed like it was someone else's furniture, back straight, legs crossed, one hand wrapped around her wrist. Her eyes didn't meet mine. Not right away. Outside, the city moved on. People walked their dogs. A bus hissed to a stop across the street. Some couple laughed 3 stories down. Everything sounded louder now, like life had turned up the volume just to mock me. Allison, I said again, gently but firm. Is there something you want to tell me? Silence. Then a breath. Then she said it. Michael. I've been seeing Jay. No hesitation. No tears. No denial. Just that. Like a doctor reading test results from across the room. I didn't flinch. I didn't ask her to repeat it. I just stood there. Still. Frozen. Not shocked exactly. Just hollowed out. Like the part of me that should have screamed had already left the room. How long? I asked. 2 months, she said. Maybe longer. It's complicated. I laughed. Just once. Sharp. Bitter. Complicated? She sighed. Looked at her hands. Not at me. I didn't plan it, she added. It just happened. It didn't just happen, Allison, I said quietly. Trips don't just happen. Dinners don't just happen. 2 months of sneaking around doesn't just happen. She didn't argue. I thought we were done, she said. We weren't. Her jaw clenched. You've been stuck, Michael. You don't even see it. I was trying to build something and you're still chasing side gigs and logos for pizza shops. I needed more. I needed a better man? She flinched at that. Just a little. No, she whispered. A real man. Silence fell over the room like dust. Heavy. Undeniable. I gave you everything I had, I said, and suddenly the words came out faster than I could catch them. I moved here for you. I worked every damn night for pennies trying to build something you'd be proud of. Every extra dollar went into making you happy. I let go of everything I wanted just to keep up with what you dreamed of. She didn't respond. And it still wasn't enough. She finally looked up. Her eyes weren't cruel. Just empty. Like the girl I fell in love with had been slowly disappearing and I was just now noticing her ghost. I'm not sorry, she said. I needed to feel alive. Jay makes me feel that way. He's decisive. Successful. He knows what he wants. He doesn't need time to get his act together. He's already there. And I'm just the guy with the laptop and the daydreams, right? She didn't answer. That was answer enough. She didn't ask me to stay. Didn't beg for forgiveness. Didn't shed a single tear. When I asked her why she didn't just leave sooner, she said, because I wanted to be sure I was making the right choice. Right choice. As if our 3 years together had been some test run. A dress rehearsal before the real show began. I'm sorry it hurts, she said, getting up, brushing imaginary lint from her dress. But it's better this way. For both of us. No. It wasn't better. But it was final. I didn't sleep that night. I packed while she pretended not to watch. My duffel bag filled with shirts I hadn't worn in months, sketch pads, the framed photo we took in front of our first apartment, face down, glass cracked. She stood by the door when I zipped the bag. You'll be okay, she said, as if she had the right to tell me anything now. I didn't answer. I walked out without looking back. Down the stairs. Through the lobby. Into the night. And that was it. 3 years reduced to silence. The first motel I found had a flickering vacancy sign and smelled like bleach and heartbreak. The clerk didn't ask questions. Just handed me a key and said room 6. Around the back. It was small. Beige. Clean enough. I dropped my bag, sat on the edge of the bed and stared at nothing for a long time. I didn't cry. Couldn't. I just sat there, still in my coat, phone buzzing beside me. One text from Jacob. One from Chloe. 4 from her. I didn't open any of them. I couldn't. Instead, I turned off my phone and laid down, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the hurt to settle. But it didn't settle. It sharpened. The kind of pain that presses against your ribs from the inside. I thought about all the things I didn't get to say. All the things I should have seen. All the memories that were now just lies in disguise. At some point, I must have dozed off because I woke to a pale sunrise bleeding through the curtains and the sound of a coffee pot gurgling outside the room. Pete, the motel owner, was standing in the courtyard, smoking and reading the paper. He nodded at me. Long night? Yeah. You'll survive, he said. Everyone does. I wanted to believe him. But at that moment, all I could feel was the echo of her voice calling me a loser. Saying I wasn't enough. Saying she didn't want to waste her youth on me. And for a terrifying second, I believed her. I didn't leave that motel room for 2 days. I laid on the stiff mattress with the TV off and the lights dimmed, just letting the ceiling stare back. The silence was a weight, not peaceful, not calming, just heavy. Like grief had collapsed in on itself and decided to live here now, next to the flickering alarm clock and the humming fridge. Food didn't taste like anything. Sleep didn't help. Even showering felt like dragging a dead version of myself through steam and soap. I was numb in a way I hadn't known a person could be. She was gone. Not just out of the apartment, but out of the dream. The dream we'd built together, late nights and tangled limbs, ramen dinners and whispered someday promises. She'd torched it. No ceremony. No apology. Just scorched earth. And what was left? Me. A guy with a laptop, 3 pairs of jeans, and a pain so deep it felt like part of my bloodstream. On the 3rd day, Pete knocked on the door. You alive in there? He called. I answered, voice hoarse, yeah. He waited. Then said, coffee's fresh. Come breathe some real air. I didn't want to. But something about his voice, gruff, unbothered, human, dragged me up. I threw on a hoodie, shuffled outside. The morning was cold. Wet air clung to everything like an apology. Pete handed me a paper cup and nodded toward a plastic chair. Sit. Look miserable out here. Place has a reputation to maintain. I half smiled. Just a flicker. It surprised me. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't need to. Motel owners see everything eventually. Breakups. Breakdowns. People on the run from jobs, marriages, themselves. Instead, he said, you remind me of me 20 years ago. Wife ran off with her yoga instructor. Left a note and half the mortgage. I blinked. Seriously? He sipped. Nah. She ran off with the pastor. Yoga would have made more sense. And I laughed. A real one. Short, cracked, but real. That night, I opened my laptop. Not to work. Just to look at the mess of files, sketches, drafts, ghosts of what I used to love. Design had always been my sanctuary. But now it felt like a language I'd forgotten how to speak. Still, I clicked open a blank canvas. And stared. Then I started sketching. Not for a client. Not to prove anything. Just shapes. Lines. Messy, uneven. A skyline melting into trees. A man standing on a hill made of paper. A heart held together by tape. It was ugly. It was honest. I saved it. Didn't name it. Just let it exist. The next afternoon I went for a walk. There was a used bookstore a few blocks away. The kind of place that smelled like dust and magic. I wandered in without thinking. Just needed to be surrounded by other people's words for a while. That's where I saw her. She was flipping through a photography book, her fingers gently turning the pages like they mattered. Tall, slender. Dark jeans. A hoodie with some obscure indie band I actually liked. Our eyes met. She gave a polite smile. I nodded back. That should have been it. But 5 minutes later, we were standing side by side at the checkout and she glanced at the book I'd grabbed, Creative Direction for the Modern Age. Design? She asked. I nodded, trying to get back into it. She tilted her head. Or trying not to give it up? I blinked. She grinned. Emma, she said, offering her hand. Michael. We ended up walking to the nearby cafe. Not planned. Not expected. Just easy. She was funny. Not in a try-hard way. Just comfortable in her skin. She talked about UX research and her obsession with outdated Polaroid cameras. I told her about freelancing and font design and why I hated Comic Sans more than cilantro. She laughed. Really laughed. It felt good. Dangerous, almost. I wasn't ready. Not for anything serious. Not even for friendship. But I didn't feel like I was drowning anymore. Just floating. And that was enough. We started seeing each other. Slowly. Platonically at first. Walks. Coffee. Movie nights. She never asked too many questions. Never pried. One night, I told her about Allison. Not all the details. Just enough. She listened. Didn't pity me. Didn't offer cliches. Just said I've been there. Different story. Same wound. And that changed everything. It had been 2 months since I last thought about her voice. That's not to say I didn't think about her. Allison lingered in the background of every empty moment. Like a scent that wouldn't wash out. Like dust caught in sunlight. But I didn't hear her voice anymore. Not in memory, not in dreams. It had dulled. Faded. Gone quiet. Until it wasn't. It started with a text. Unknown number. Can we talk? No name. No context. I knew anyway. I didn't respond. Just stared at the screen for 10 full minutes, then powered off the phone. Emma noticed something was off during our movie night that evening, but didn't press. She just passed me the popcorn and let the silence sit between us unjudged. That was the thing about Emma. She never demanded more than I could give. The next day, Jacob called. I ran into her, he said without preamble. She asked about you. Of course she did. She looked different. Tired. Worn out. Not the same. I leaned back in my chair. The studio space I was renting was quiet, white walls, one flickering neon sign outside the window, and the faint hum of the espresso machine down the hall. She say anything useful? I asked. Only that she regrets how it ended. Said she never meant to hurt you. That she thought she wanted more, but now she's not sure what more even is. I didn't respond. Because part of me didn't want to care. But the other part, the part I'd spent weeks trying to starve, twitched back to life. A week later, I saw her. Not in person. Online. An article someone shared about a minor HR scandal at her old company. Jay was named. Not explicitly. But it was him. Senior executive involved in an inappropriate workplace relationship. I closed the article halfway through. I didn't need to know the rest. Emma noticed me brooding again. This time she asked, "You okay?" I hesitated. She's trying to reach me. Emma nodded once. No flinch. No jealousy. Just quiet understanding. Do you want to talk to her? I thought about it. I don't know, I said honestly. Part of me wants to ask, why? Part of me wants to forget she ever existed. Emma leaned in, took my hand. She didn't break you, Michael. She cracked something open. And look what came out. Her voice was soft. Not rehearsed. Not poetic. Just true. I didn't respond to the text. Or the second one. Or the email that followed. But one afternoon I found myself walking past our old apartment building. The one we moved into when we still believed in someday. The window still had the tiny crack I'd covered with clear tape. The corner cafe was still open. Different couple now, laughing at the same table we used to claim. And for a second it hurt. Not because I missed her, but because I missed the version of me who hadn't been burned yet. The man who still believed love was enough. That night, I told Emma everything. The worst of it. The cruel words. The things I hadn't even told myself out loud. How Allison had called me a loser. How she said I was wasting her time. How I started to believe it. Emma listened. Every word. And when I was done, she looked at me not with pity, but with pride. You walked through hell, she said. And you didn't come out bitter. You came out better. We sat in silence, her head on my shoulder, the sound of the city humming in the background. And I knew I was finally free. Not because the past was gone, but because it didn't own me anymore. We left the city before dawn. Emma had booked the cabin on a whim, or so she claimed. She called it a reset. A recalibration. She packed the car with blankets, a French press, 2 books I hadn't heard of, and a worn Polaroid camera she refused to travel without. I added hoodies, hiking boots, a notepad I hadn't touched in weeks, and a cooler full of overpriced organic snacks. It was the middle of October. The trees were showing off, flaming gold and rusty reds lining the 2-lane road that twisted toward the coast. I drove, she navigated, and neither of us said much. Not out of awkwardness. Just the kind of silence that felt earned. Comfortable. I hadn't taken a break from work in months. Not since things with Emma had turned into something real. Not since I'd found stability in my field, clients who trusted me, projects that made me feel valuable. But that same forward motion had left parts of me stiff. Wound tight. And in a way I hadn't realized, I was tired. Bone deep tired. The cabin sat at the edge of a cliff overlooking the sea. One of those getaway places with no Wi-Fi, no service, and no clocks. Just wood, warmth, and the sound of waves crashing against rocks. Emma smiled when I took my first breath of that clean, briny air. Better, she asked. I nodded. Much. That first evening, we didn't talk much. We made chili, lit a fire, read our books side by side until the light faded and we were both too warm and too tired to move. We laid on the old couch with a wool blanket pulled up to our chins. The ocean roared outside like a secret being whispered to the world. She turned toward me in the flickering firelight and asked, "Do you ever miss it?" I didn't need her to explain. I knew what she meant. The life before. The person I used to be. I don't miss her, I said. But I miss the version of me that believed in her. Emma nodded slowly. That's fair. She didn't pry. Didn't ask for details. But I gave them anyway. I told her about the night I left the apartment. The motel. Pete. The endless static of those first few days. How I felt like a discarded thing. Something breakable that someone forgot to put in the trash. I told her how long it took for the anger to show up. How the sadness arrived first, dressed like shame. How I started to believe her believed that I wasn't enough. And how I slowly started to fight that belief, pixel by pixel, draft by draft. How I clawed my way back into the light. I'm not there yet, I said quietly. But I'm closer than I've ever been. Emma took my hand beneath the blanket. You don't have to be all the way healed, she whispered. You just have to be honest about where it hurts. The next morning we walked the coastline. The wind had teeth, but the sun did its best to soften the blow. Emma wore a scarf that kept unraveling and snapping in the wind, and every time she fought it, she laughed. The kind of laugh that made you believe in mornings again. We didn't talk much. Just walked. And then halfway down the path, she stopped. I was engaged once, she said. I turned, surprised. She smiled, sad. It was a long time ago. College sweetheart. Everyone thought we'd make it. But somewhere between graduation and job offers, we stopped seeing each other. Not because we didn't love one another, but because we stopped growing in the same direction. Who ended it? I asked. I did, she said. But it still broke me. For a long time, I thought I was the problem. She took a deep breath. You're the first person I've trusted since. My chest tightened, not in fear, but in awe. In understanding. I'm scared too, I admitted. I want this. I really do. But some days, I still feel like I'm waiting to mess it all up. Then we'll be scared together, she said. And that was enough. That night, we built a fire and made s'mores like we were kids. She took a photo with her Polaroid, me holding a marshmallow, half-burned, eyebrows raised. She wrote on the bottom, "Proof. He didn't burn the house down." I kept that photo. It lives on my desk to this day. We stayed 2 nights. Long enough to unplug. Long enough to lean into each other. Long enough to recognize that we were building something. Not out of desperation. Not out of shared trauma. but out of choice. We chose each other. Not because we were perfect, but because we were real. Returning from the coast felt like waking from a dream. The quiet stayed with me, tucked between my shoulder blades like a borrowed stillness. But the city didn't care. It picked up right where it left off. Emails flooding in, Slack pings vibrating against my thigh, 2 back-to-back meetings before I could finish my first coffee. I was back in motion, and for the first time in a long time I wasn't dreading it. Things were good. Not perfect, but solid. My contract with the agency had evolved into something permanent. Emma and I were syncing, easy rhythms, shared space, late-night brainstorming sessions that drifted from business to dreams. I'd even gotten a new client, a nonprofit startup focused on youth mental health. Small team, big mission, and they wanted me to lead their rebrand. The campaign was called Inside Out. Simple idea, we all carry things people can't see. Let's make the invisible visible. The brief hit me hard, maybe too hard, because I knew what it was like to carry shame, insecurity, fear, and still smile like it was just another Tuesday. This wasn't just another gig. This was personal. I started sketching on the train ride home. Rough outlines, color palettes, typography that felt more like voice than font. I wanted the brand to breathe, bold but soft, raw but hopeful. I lost sleep over it, not because I was stressed, but because I cared. It had to matter. A week into the project, my manager pulled me into a call with the agency's lead creative director. Corporate guy, sharp suits, sharper tongue. He smiled as he looked through my concepts. Nice, but let's go safer. I blinked. Safer. Think more clinical, less emotional. We don't want to alienate parents or potential donors. Clean, simple, maybe something blue. But the whole point is vulnerability, I said. If we mute the message, we lose the heart. He smiled again, cold, final. This isn't about your feelings, Michael. This is about optics. I left the call buzzing with frustration. I knew he was wrong, but I also knew the game. I'd watched talented people cave for less, make compromises dressed as strategy. I spent the weekend stewing, then sketching, then walking miles through the city trying to outrun my thoughts. By Sunday night, I was done running. I opened my laptop, and I made 2 versions. Version A, muted, minimal, blue, safe. Version B, mine. Colorful, human, imperfect, honest. The kind of work I would have wanted to see when I was at my lowest. The kind of message I'd needed when I thought I didn't matter. I added a note. I know which one I'd stake my name on. Up to you which one you pitch. I hit send. Then I turned off my notifications, poured a whiskey, and stared at the skyline until my chest stopped buzzing. Monday morning, the creative director replied. 2 words. Let's talk. I went into the call expecting a fight, but instead I got silence. He stared at the screen, fingers steepled. Then he sighed. You're good, he said. Annoying but good. He picked version B, and just like that, everything shifted. The campaign launched 2 weeks later. It went viral. Stories poured in, testimonials, reposts, open letters from people who finally felt seen. The colors, the phrases, the look. It resonated. I was interviewed by 2 design blogs. The startup got a flood of donations, and I got a promotion. Officially, senior creative lead. Unofficially, the guy who trusted his gut and got it right. I told Emma the night it happened. We celebrated with street tacos and dollar store champagne, sitting on the floor of our apartment like royalty who knew what really mattered. She looked at me over her plastic cup and said, I hope you never let anyone shrink your work again. I won't, I said, and meant it, because for the first time, my voice didn't sound like an echo of someone else's dream. Sounded like mine. It was a Tuesday when the past knocked. I was in the middle of reviewing final proofs for a national campaign. High stakes, tight deadline, my coffee already lukewarm, when my assistant poked her head into my office. There's someone here to see you, she said. She didn't leave a name, just said it's personal. My stomach tightened. I knew. Somehow I knew. I stood slowly, smoothing my sleeves like it would prepare me for whatever storm was waiting outside that door. I wasn't ready, but I wasn't hiding either. When I stepped into the lobby, I saw her, Allison. She looked like someone I used to know through a fogged window. The same delicate features, the same eyes, but now rimmed red, her shoulders drawn up, makeup smudged. She clutched a tissue like it was the only thing keeping her upright. She looked up. "Michael," she breathed, and just like that, years collapsed into seconds. I didn't move. "Can we talk?" she asked, voice trembling. "Please." I hesitated, then nodded once and led her into the small glass meeting room off the lobby. Neutral ground. A place without memories. She sat down across from me, hands shaking, her composure unraveling faster than her words. "I shouldn't be here," she said quickly. But I didn't know what else to do. She looked up, tears spilling now. No mascara to hold them back. "I'm sorry." I said nothing. "I was wrong," she choked. "So wrong. About you. About everything. You weren't the failure, Michael. I was. God, I was so stupid." Her voice broke. Her whole body seemed smaller now, like the weight of her regret was crushing her. "I called you a loser. I said you weren't enough. And I can't believe I ever said those things to someone who loved me the way you did." I swallowed hard. Because the truth is, I felt something. Not longing. Not pity. Something colder. Sharper. Recognition. She wasn't a ghost anymore. She was just a woman who made the wrong bet. "I was so focused on this perfect life I thought I needed," she continued. "I wanted it all right away. And Jay, he made me believe I could have it. Fast. Easy. But he left. Of course he left. He always would've." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, looked at me. "I lost the baby," she said softly. "I never told you that. It was his. And it didn't matter to him. But it mattered to me. And I sat in a hospital bed thinking about the man who actually would have stayed. That hit harder than I expected. Memories surged. Mornings we'd planned names. Daydreams we'd painted in shared notebooks. A future that once felt real. But they didn't feel like mine anymore. "I just want to say I'm sorry," she whispered. "And I know it's too late. But I had to say it." The silence stretched between us like glass. "I forgave you a long time ago," I said. "Not because you deserved it, but because I needed to move on." Her lip trembled. "Is there any part of you that still?" I shook my head gently. "No." She let out a sound like air leaving a balloon. The kind of grief that knows it's final. "There's someone else now," I added. "Her name's Emma. She met me at my lowest. And she stayed. Not because I was anything yet, but because she saw what I was becoming." Allison nodded slowly. "I hope she knows how lucky she is." "She does," I said. She stood, wiping her face, gathering the fragments of what was left. "I'm glad you're happy," she whispered. "Truly." I opened the door for her. She walked out without looking back. That night, Emma and I curled up on the couch, a blanket around our feet, popcorn between us, some old film flickering on the screen. I told her everything. She listened, didn't speak until I was done. Then she touched my hand. "She was a chapter," she said. "But I'm your story." And I believed her. There's a moment you don't notice while it's happening. A quiet one. Not dramatic. No music swells or epiphanies. Just a simple, ordinary second where you realize you're happy. I had that moment on a Wednesday morning. I was in the kitchen, barefoot, brewing coffee. Emma was humming off-key to some indie playlist, standing on her tiptoes trying to reach a mug from the top shelf. The window above the sink was open and sunlight poured in like it was something personal. There was a breeze. Toast popped. The world didn't feel heavy. And I just stopped. Looked around. And thought, this is it. Not a mansion. Not a crowd. Not a trophy. Just this. A space where I could breathe. A woman who saw me without flinching. A life I built with cracked hands and a stitched-up heart. Home. I used to think healing would be loud. Grand. Obvious. I thought it would look like revenge. Like proving someone wrong. Like walking into a room and having every doubter eat their words. But real healing is quiet. It's laughing in the middle of dinner without realizing it. It's falling asleep without checking your phone. It's seeing an old photo and feeling nothing. It's waking up next to someone who knows your past and still chooses your present. That's what Emma gave me. Not escape, but peace. Work was steady. I wasn't chasing anymore. Clients came to me. I'd built a reputation not just for design, but for honesty. I spoke at a conference in Austin, led a panel in Vancouver, taught a virtual workshop about branding through trauma and resilience. People didn't just want logos. They wanted stories. And for the first time, I knew how to tell them. Emma started working with a startup focused on women's wellness. She was thriving, balanced, and bold. We moved into a new apartment. Bigger, brighter. The kind with shelves we didn't fill yet and a balcony just big enough for 2 chairs and a morning routine. One night, after too much wine and laughter, I pulled out the ring. No speech. No crowd. Just us. She said yes before I finished asking. We didn't cry. We smiled like people who had already chosen each other 100 times. Because we had. I never saw Allison again. Never answered the letter. But I didn't hate her. She was a storm I survived. A lesson I needed. She helped me see what I didn't want. So I could find what I did. Sometimes I still think about that night at the motel. How I felt like a broken thing. How small I seemed inside my own life. If I could speak to that version of myself now, I wouldn't say, it gets better. I'd say, you get better. You grow. You heal. You rebuild. And one day you wake up in a kitchen filled with sun, beside a woman who sees you and a life that finally fits. And you don't just breathe. You belong.